Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the YouTube channel grecochess, where we analyze the various aspects of the game of chess. In this series of videos, I'm presenting the games that I played at the recent Connecticut State Chess Championship. And in this video in particular, we are dealing with round 3, my third game that I played. I started with one loss in round 1 and one win in round 2, and this is round 3. But first, let's share the details of the tournament. As you see here, the tournament took place on Sunday, November 9th. It was a 4-round Swiss tournament. What does this mean? It means that every player would play 4 games. You wouldn't be eliminated if you lost. You'd play 4 games no matter what happened at the other games. And you could choose your section. At the very top, for the very best players, was the champion section, meaning whoever would win would become the Connecticut State Chess Champion. If that was too strong for you, and yes, it was too strong for me, there was the under 2200. That was also too strong for me, meaning your rating had to be below 2200 points to be eligible. I participated in the under 1800, and below that, but I was not eligible, was the under 1300, the under 800, and for the not-donated players, there were some other sections. The time control for my section and for the highest ones was G45 plus 10. What does it mean? It means that when the game starts, every player has 45 minutes on their clock. And after every move, they gain another 10 seconds increment. And you must complete all your moves before the clock goes down to 0. If your clock goes down to 0, then you lose the game because you timed out. There is one exception. If the opponent doesn't have enough material to win it, you may get a draw, but usually if your clock goes down to 0, it is a loss. My opponent, his name was Joseph Cyr, as you see here. His rating, in fact, this is the regular, the only number that matters, is 1642. This means the other ratings, the quick and the blitz, are not relevant. This is the ELO rating scale, and if you're not familiar with that, the higher the number, the stronger the player. The strongest people in the world are between 28 and 2900, while the computers have reached about a rating of 4000. And you see here that the rating of Joseph and my rating later are a little bit more than half of the top players. And my rating now, as you see on this page, it is 1595, lower than the 1642 of my opponent. So Joseph clearly had the better chances on his side. And we're going now to switch to the chessboard of chess.com, where we're going to see what exactly happened. Let's share the screen. It's a different screen that we have here. This is the screen from chess.com. And I'm going to explain what is going to happen. On the left half, meaning here, you're going to see the chessboard, meaning what is the position after every move. And I'm copying the moves from the score sheet to the chessboard. And on the right half, you're going to see here below the word analysis, the computer evaluation. The computer, by the way, is TalkV16. If we see a positive number, it means that white is doing better. Negative means that black is doing better. The computer is going to comment on the move. The first few moves are usually book moves. And then you see whether a move is brilliant with 2 exclamation marks, great with 1 exclamation mark, if it is the best among the choices that the player had, if it was excellent, meaning not necessarily the best, but almost the best, if it was a good move, and on the negative side, if it was an inaccuracy, if it was a mistake or a blunder. And also the computer will show which move would have been the best and what are the top 5 options for the player whose turn is to come. My opponent Joseph had the white pieces, I had the black, and Joseph starts with the most common move, for white pawn to e4. And I reply the way I'd usually do with the French defense, pawn to e6. This is the third most popular reply to e4. The most popular is the Sicilian, pawn to c5. The second is the symmetric pawn to e5. And the one I played is the third best. It's called the French defense. And you are going to see here the comment of the computer. It's the French defense. And my opponent usually, when the black starts with the French defense, usually white second move is pawn to d4. They may develop their knight on c3 perhaps, or even on f3, but sometimes the bishop may go to c4. But what my opponent did was something that made me uncomfortable. Yes, it is in the opening theory, but area move. Pawn to b3. Preparing to fianchetto. The computer says it is a book move. You see there's a negative number, meaning yes, it's in the book, but black is slightly better. And of course, my opponent didn't do it by mistake, but what I was afraid that he had prepared nasty surprises for me, since I was not prepared for that line. What do I do? Let's go the irregular French way. Control the center, pawn goes to d5, attacking the pawn on e4. My opponent, instead of defending the pawn, places the bishop on b2 and has his bishop controlling the big diagonal from a1 to h8. This would give me the chance to take the pawn on e4, but I had to be very careful. If for any reason I would move my bishop to f8 to develop it, I would lose the g7 pawn and then the rook on h8. So I had to think what to do before that move. If to be able to do this, I would move my pawn to f6. Pawn goes to e5, and I have to move my knight again. By the way, this opening has a name I didn't know at the time. We are learning it now. It's called the French defense Horwitz Paparticular Gambit. But what should I do? I decided let's take the pawn now. In the gambit, take the pawn, but don't do your best to keep it. I take it for now. And if I have to surrender it, yes, because if you go to extreme to keep it, your opponent develops so fast, and before you know it, you have an extra pawn, but your king is in danger. My opponent continues with the knight going to c3 and trying to get the pawn back, attacks the pawn. And what I decide to do? Well, if my knight goes to f6, this both develops my knight, protects the pawn on e4, and also exerts pressure on two crucial central squares, e4 and d5. My opponent tries to gain the pawn again. Queen goes to e2, so the pawn is attacked twice, knight on c3 and queen e2. What can I do now? I only defended once on f6, and it's not easy to defend it. I mean, of course, I could throw my queen to d4 because the other pieces cannot really defend it. But then my opponent had a lot of great moves. For example, knight goes to b5. Let's see if that would be a good, because my queen could take the, no, that would not be a good move because then the bishop on b2 would be lost. But my opponent could, for example, place the knight on a4, protect the bishop, and then I would have to move the queen again. And if you start the game by moving your queen again and again, soon you're in a tough situation. So they want to do anything like that. And instead, I felt, let the opponent take it. And now that my knight is on f6, and of course the other knight on c3, I can develop my bishop on e7. And Joseph decides, at this moment, before we say what he decided, we completed the first 5 moves, all of them book moves, all of them from the very rare French defense Horwitz Paparticular Gambit. My opponent is slightly ahead by 0.21. Perhaps it could be better ways, because here you saw that there was a negative number. And my best reply was d5. Yes, let's go once again and see what happened. Again, there was negative. Again, negative. And now, according to the computer, my best reply would have been knight goes to c6 and not to f6. Of course, I would have to. Maybe I could still keep the pawn, because if he took it back, then my pawn on d6 would take it back. So this is the best possible continuation, but still we're in book theory. But let's continue now with the game. After the first 5 moves, all of them are book moves. And Joseph continues with queenside castling. By doing so, first of all, his king is safe on c1, his rook is on semi-open file, the d file, and also the rook looks at my queen. Only the d2 pawn is the one that stops the rook from threatening my queen. What do I do? Since my opponent started, and now you see that we let for good the book moves, the opening theory. Computer doesn't think it's the best, would rather have the knight take on a4 and get the pawn back. And what do we play? Since the opponent's castled queen side, let's attack along the queen side. And let's keep a mystery. How am I going if I'm going to castle? Pawn goes to a5, gain space for my rook on a8. The second best move and an excellent move according to the computer. And my opponent tries to stop the pawn to a4. But by doing so, what's happening is that he weakens the king. The king is supposed to have the A, B, C pawns nearby to protect. A pawn is on a4, B pawn on b3. What should they do now? Develop the other bishop, going to d7. And finally, my opponent takes the pawn on e4. Mistakes as a computer, and now, believe it or not, I'm ahead once again with minus 0.16. And how do I play? Finally, time to castle. I knew that I could not leave my king exposed in the center any longer. Kingside castling, opposite side castling, which usually means try to attack. Both sides need to attack towards the enemy king. Whoever is the fastest usually wins. Knight to f3 for Joseph, that develops his knight. And now, I don't want to let this knight be here. It's too dangerous. Not yet, but soon it can take my knight on f6. Bishop can come here. And let's stop this threat as early as possible. Now, I take on e4. But computer thinks it's an inaccuracy. Would rather have me continue the attack with pawn going to b5. The queen will take back the knight. Material-wise, we're equal. And my bishop goes to c6 now. The best move is a computer, and I'm threatening the queen. And not only that, then behind that is the knight on f3. And we completed the first 10 moves. Joseph is ahead with the white pieces by 0.8, not crucial yet. Let's see how game continues. Queen goes to g4, of course, protects a queen. If I take the knight on f3, queen takes it back, so he doesn't need to double his pawns. And he's threatening, believe it or not, with checkmate. Because if he could play a second move in a row, queen goes to g7, supported by bishop on b2, checkmate. Of course, I saw it. I say, of course, well, in online games with limited time control, sometimes I miss it. But this time I put my bishop on f6, and is the best as a computer. Unfortunately, the queen on d8 supports the bishop on f6, because otherwise my opponent could just take the bishop on f6, and because of the pin, wins a piece. What does he do? Pawn to d4 to get more space. And now I'm afraid of the bishop joining the attack, and that is, I'm sorry, I'm afraid of the knight on f3 joining the attack. And I want to get rid of this piece. I want to get rid of his attacking pieces, so I'm taking it. And Joseph decided to take back not with the queen, but double his pawns using the g pawn. Why, you may be wondering, computer says a mistake. I'm ahead once again. But there is a reason behind it. He didn't do it because he didn't know about pawn structure theory. He knew very well that he was doubling his pawns and creating one extra pawn island. But he wanted his rook to be able to go to g1 and attack my king. So if he could force a very strong attack in the middle game, he could win. But if we exchanged and went until the end, then the odds would be on my side if every piece was exchanged. And at this point, I decide to do a check, to g5 check. To block, of course, the g5, computer thinks a miss, would rather have me develop my knight on c6 and attack the pawn on d4. And how did Joseph reply? Instead of moving his king, he moved his pawn to f4. My bishop is in danger, so I send the bishop back to h6. It also covers the g7 square. The computer would rather have it go on f6. But I wanted to have the pawn at f4 being pinned, so he doesn't push it. That's why I put my bishop there. Perhaps the queen could also go to f6 or to g6 and be exchanged with the white pieces. Bishop goes to d3 for Joseph, and now, in addition to attacking with his bishop at b2 on the dark squares, he also uses his bishop on d3 to attack on the white squares. My queen goes to d6 now. Here is a threat, why I did it. If I could play a second move in a row, queen goes to f4 check, wins the pawn, queen takes back, my bishop takes on f4 check, and I got rid of the attack, no queens, and I have an extra pawn. That is what I was hoping, and Joseph replied by the only move that would leave him the advantage. He wouldn't allow me to do the check. Computer doesn't think that I would win otherwise, but my opponent's advantage would be much smaller. I thought if I could do the check, I would win. So what does he play? First of all, he moves his king to b1, so there is no check. But before we do that, we completed the first 15 moves. And after my queen going to d6, my opponent, Joseph, has advantage of 1.52. It starts being important. But if you see, if I could do the check on f4, the advantage would be cut to half or even more. So he places his king on b1 and avoids this possibility. And what do I do now? Well, at least there is no check, but I can grab the pawn on f4. And if inaccuracy is a computer, I was hoping for exchanges on f4 that I would have an extra pawn without queens in the attack. But the computer would rather have me take the f4 pawn with the bishop, and still I would be behind. But now the advantage of Joseph becomes much larger. Joseph doesn't want to exchange queens. Surprise, surprise. Queen goes to h3. And I really started seeing things would not go well. Great moves in the computer. I would see that the attack was very strong. Even though I had an extra pawn, I had somehow to exchange as many pieces as possible to stay alive. But still, there was a silver lining that if I was able to stop the attack and exchange as many pieces as possible, I would reach the end game with an extra pawn. Time to develop my knight going to d7. One more piece in the game. Rook to g1 for Joseph. Rook looks at the g7 pawn. For, of course, the time being, the d4 pawn is blocking the bishop at b2, but Joseph, all he needs to do is push it. Perhaps I could push the pawn to e5. What do I do? I was afraid of something else. That if Joseph could play a second move in a row, my bishop on h6 would be pinned. Well, still he couldn't take with the queen because of my queen on f4, but if he could move, for example, his bishop to c1, then he could attack my queen, but my queen could take on. No, then my queen would have to leave, and then my bishop on h6 would be in a very precarious situation. Of course, he could go to f6, but I saw that things were becoming dim. So what I decided to do is at least make sure that there is no pin. So king goes to h8, which is not among the top 5 moves of the computer. Excellent, it says now. But you see that Joseph's advantage has increased to 4.61. Of course, I didn't know the exact number, but I knew things were not going well, even though I had an extra pawn. But can we survive? Rook to g4 for Joseph, attacking my queen on f4. And my queen, where can it go? Let's go to d6. And then Joseph was thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. He has an advantage of 6.60, and he decides to sacrifice the rook. Rook goes to g7. Brilliant moves as a computer. What can I do? I knew I couldn't let the rook there. I was lost. But if I took it with my bishop on h6, then the queen goes to h7 is mate. So I knew if I wanted to stay alive in the game, I only had one option, to take it with a king. In fact, you see that any move other than king goes to g7 has an m in front of it. So I take it to the king. We completed the first 20 moves, and things look very, very dim for me, to put it mildly. Joseph has an advantage of 7.72. But at least material-wise, I had an extra rook. Would they somehow be able to survive it? Because that time I had no idea what was the computer evaluation. I was praying for a miracle. And let's see if the miracle happened. Joseph continues the top move of the computer. Rook goes to g1, check. Where can I go? You see what the computer says. I have 4 legal moves, and only one saves me from mate. At least doesn't have the m in front. It's bishop to g5, which is not good at all. It means my opponent can freely take the bishop in his next turn. What else can I do? I was hoping that my king could somehow be able to escape. So I moved my king to f6, because if Joseph would take my bishop on h6, my king would go to e7. I would be an exchange ahead. I knew that things were not so simple, but let's do what we can. Otherwise, I lose my bishop with nothing to uh, nothing changed. So I sent it to f6, and I was basically thinking that Joseph would mistakes the computer, where in this case nothing would save me. M2 is the computer making 2 moves. I was preparing for queen takes the bishop on h6, king goes to e7, queen can check again, king goes to e8, and I survived with an extra exchange. But that was not going to happen. And to my shock and my surprise, I saw queen going to h4. And then I knew it. What could I do? Believe it or not, I had only one legal move, and this was unfortunately the fateful move. Bishop goes to g5. I decided to let my opponent checkmate and not resign, so I put my bishop on g5. And surprise, surprise, Joseph takes a bishop with a queen, and it's a checkmate. So Joseph, congratulations, you played a spectacular opening. You caught me by surprise. Hopefully I learned something out of that. And let's see what the computer has to say. Let's look at the review. Let's see, will the computer flatter me, or will it tell me that? Well, clearly you see 91.1% of Joseph, 66.2 for me. Not even 2/3 of the move correct. And Joseph played as if his rating was 2450, great one, and mine was 1550, just barely less than my actual rating. Let's go to the various categories. Joseph had a brilliant move when his rook took at g7. I'm sure, because I saw him taking a lot of time calculating. I'm sure that he calculated every possible response of mine to make sure that he was winning, because it was very risky to sacrifice a rook. If it didn't work out, I would win. Two great moves for Joseph, and I had neither brilliant nor great moves. And best 8 for Joseph, 4 for me. And Joseph had 16 out of the 23 moves that he played were the computer's best choice. Excellent, 2 for Joseph, 1 for me. Good, 1 for Joseph, 2 for me. 5 book moves each of us. And inaccuracies, 2 for Joseph, 3 for me, 1 for Joseph, 4, excuse me, mistakes, 1 for Joseph, 4 for me, and misses, 1 for Joseph and 2 for me. So clearly Joseph played way much better than me, especially after the top 10 moves where he had the two bishops collaborate with the rook and the queen and checkmate me. In fact, his choice of taking my bishop with the pawn on f3 instead of the queen, even though it doubled his pawns, turned out to be a huge plus for him. And who knows if the computer was better or he was, but his choice led him to victory. That is about this game. Fortunately, too short. But let's look now at the tournaments, what is happening. When tournaments, I mean the online tournaments, the one that I'm organizing and the other one that one of my subscribers is organizing. Mine, grecochess, nothing changes. Waiting for hunting achievements if he's going to participate. He's not yet played a single move. And he has 11 days to decide. Then Group 2, Barak 7 from Israel has advanced. Group 3, it is me, the Harry from Greece, and the line from Hungary. It is between the two of us who will get the most points to advance. And from Group 4, my skin from Italy. That is about my tournament. And let's go to the tournament of my Italian subscriber. The Underwater Moonlight, the 9 Moons tournament. Zanilo from Italy is the organizer. 81 players, 9 groups of 9. Group 1, Lotus Tan Chess from Japan has 13.5 points. Is very near advancing. The top 3 advance from each group. Group 2, Spider 99 from Egypt leads with 11 points. Group 3, VNK Arvanans from the United States leads with 11 points. Group 4, Iraq Lion from Iraq leads with 9 points. And let's see if anybody is perfect. From the first 3 groups, from the third group, yes, Maxim Govorukha from the Ukraine. He also participates in my tournament. He has a great chance to advance from Group 1. He has 9 wins in 9 games. Group 4, let's see. Iraq Lion also has 9 points in 9 games and is leading, is ahead. Group 5, Chinan Fu from Greenland has 13 points. Group 6, Mathis B 2008 from France is leading with 13.5 points. As we go on, there are fewer and fewer players that are perfect. Group 7, Gennard F66 from the Ukraine is leading with 14.5 points, and I believe he is guaranteed his advance. Group 8, Guguship Original from the European Union. This is, by the way, my group or participate is leading with 8 points. Kale Katab from Egypt is second with 7.5, and I'm third with 7.5. But I have completed all of my games, so all we need is one player to get more than 7.5, and I'm out. Things don't look that great for me. Out of a total of 16 games, I got 7.5 points, not even half of them. And Group 9, the final one, we have Steam the Rocket from Australia leads with 9 points. So the only 2 players until now is from Group 3, Maxim Govorukha, 3 out of, excuse me, 9 out of 9. He's third in points because he has many games he has not played yet. And Group 4 is Iraq Lion from Iraq, is leading with 9 wins in 9 games. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. This is the review of my third game at the Connecticut State Chess Championship. There is one more game to go. And then I have 3 games from the Chessanity, the most recent Chessanity tournament. My name is Karilas Eniziris. This is my YouTube channel, grecochess. Thanks to all the subscribers. Thanks also to the likes and to the encouraging comments we've had from time to time. For now, goodbye.